All right. We are live. Set this up so I can see the chat in case someone comes around. I've decided to try this a little kind of a holiday Christmas special. What I'll do is I'll essentially kind of make a video of a comic book review that I would usually make, but I'll broadcast kind of the process. So I'm not going to have music in the background because when I go to edit, it cuts the music up and it doesn't sound good. So it's better I do it without the music. But we're going to review Steve Ditko's Mr. A. So Steve Ditko is the co-creator. See, I think I might turn this up a bit. Yeah, I think that's all right. So today we're reviewing Mr. A by the inimitable Steve Ditko. Mr. A by Ditko. Now, if for some unusual reason you are not familiar with Steve Ditko, well, the long and short of it is that he is a master comic artist, very highly renowned and mostly known for having co-created Spider-Man and other characters such as Doctor Strange that came to be extremely famous. Now, my favorite character and my favorite Steve Ditko creation is this guy. His name is The Question. He later came to be written by, so this is, The Question was made for Charlton Comics and became a property of Charlton Comics that was later sold to DC Comics along with other characters like the Blue Beetle, which you may know. Now, a lot of people know The Question because Alan Moore's famous work called The Watchmen has a character in it that people resonated with called Rorschach. The initial story pitch for Watchmen by Alan Moore was meant to use the original Charlton characters, but I guess DC Comics had a plan for them, and so Alan Moore changed his story to do new characters that were sort of similar to those original characters. So in a way, Rorschach is kind of like The Question, but as seen through Alan Moore's eyes. And I'll put on the screen here some images of Rorschach and the Watchmen and all that. Now, Steve Ditko eventually left Marvel and left Charlton and went on to do his own work. Now, this was the, This Charlton work was done in the 1960s, I believe 1967. And The Question is a reporter with strong moral values and a strong sense of right and wrong who uncovers corruption and sometimes does so as his alter ego, the Question. And he wears a mask which obscures his face, and he has no face as the Question. Now notice this line running through the center here, where there's like kind of like two sections of the face symmetrical. So one identity and another identity. This comes into play importantly in the future when Mr. Ditko publishes independently his character. Now, he couldn't use the Question because it was owned by another company. So he did the next best thing and kind of rewrote his character and called him Mr. A. It's very close. You can tell he's dancing around some copyright issues, right? So instead of the character having no face, he has a face, but the mask is a mask of his face. The expression is neutral, and it just kind of shows you how this is a bit of a glance into the character's personality. He's quite unyielding, as we'll see. But it still wears the same outfit, two-piece suit, fedora. So it's the Question. It's his creation, just with some adjustments. Now, I want to share something with you about what this spread reminds me of. So I just gotta get this. Okay. Let's move that to the top. Okay, so you can see that, right? So what this reminds me of is Russian propaganda posters, right? Let me open one. If you look at this, and compare with this, to me, there's something similar. Let's look at another one. Especially the World War II era posters. Let's take a look. Is it just me? Or is there a similarity? Am I crazy? What do you think? The color scheme definitely makes it look similar. But yeah, I might be reading too much into it. But it is similar to Russian propaganda posters, this Steve Ditko spread here, in the sense that it's bold design meant to convey like a message, right? So we're getting a sense of Steve Ditko's philosophy of life and therefore the purpose for the existence of this comic. He wants to tell you his beliefs, right? We'll look at that. So Mr. A, there's a reason he's called Mr. A, and we'll look at that. Your only choice, either good or evil. Every one of your decisions is weighed. Right? When is a man to be judged evil? And the name of this comic is called Right to Kill. It's intense right off the bat. Right off the bat, it's very intense. Right? Here we have the balance, scale of justice, life, and a skull for death. So Ditko's point of view is quite black and white. 50 cents. If we look at other comic books published at the same time, so I pulled up, this was published the same years. Here, 100-page spectacular, which is smaller, bigger than this, was 50 cents. If you look at other things, 1973, Amazing Spider-Man was 20 cents. So this, at the time, would have been the standard price, 20 cents. But this, at the time, would have been a prestige publication, really, right? And it does discuss this in the opening, the introduction, basically. So the publisher, who was Joe Brancatelli, was the editor. The publisher is Comic Art Publishers. That's the name of the publisher, Comic Art Publishers. He basically complains about the low quality of what comic publishers are offering. So he's presenting his comics offerings by highlighting his opinion that the other publishers are just bad publishers, which I think is a mistake, right? To elevate yourself by putting others down. I think it comes across very poorly. And you'll notice a lot of people on YouTube now, self-publishers, take the same tactic. It's kind of like, and in politics, they do that. It's a negative attack campaign, right? Make the other guy look poorly so that you seem like a better alternative. Personally, I don't think that's a good game to play. I think that's a fool's errand in the end, but people do that. And there's some success that can happen out of that. I think it just in the long run, you're better to be for something than against something. But you see here, it says Joe Brancatelli signed, in general, the publishers of comics now owned by giant Joe Brancatelli says, in general, the publishers of comics now owned by giant conglomerates, if only he had known. Now they're mega giant conglomerates, are too interested in the monthly profit, which I don't see what's wrong with that. I don't see what's wrong in trying to make your business successful. But to him, too interested in the monthly profit and lost statements to turn out superior products. Now he's saying the focus on the monthly profit is causing them to make bad product. Okay, so that's the claim. And here it says that's why Comic Art Publishers was formed, as a reaction to the poor offerings. Now, I'm sure that resonates for you in the modern day if you're a comic fan that's active on YouTube. As fans of the comic medium, we're out to prove to the comic establishment that they aren't the only ones who know how to handle the comic medium. In fact, their performance in the past has been so dreadful, we challenge the notion that they ever knew what they were doing. Comic Art Publishers will be different. Okay, it's fair. So he's saying what his positive contribution will be, will be more responsive to the desires of the readers. Again, does that sound familiar? But more importantly, will be responsive to the few comic professionals and amateurs who can and want to do better material. It's about time someone is responding. 40 years has been too long a wait. So I just thought it was interesting that it encapsulates, this to me encapsulates a sentiment that is ever present in the comics industry, right? The big guys aren't doing good work. The little guys are going to show them how to do it right. Here, there's a write-up about what the character is about. Right? I'm laughing because to me, it's not the way that you introduce a character. You introduce a character by telling stories about the character. But here there's like an essay telling you the philosophy behind the character, which already, to me, it's already boring. This is not something that draws me in. Now, this is something that might draw you in if you agree with these sentiments. Yes, I am frustrated about the corporate comic offerings. Yes, I do want something different. And yes, I do agree that there is no middle ground between good and evil. And I do agree in rugged individualism and libertarianism, right? Here it's predicted that libertarianism is, so what does it say? Many people predict that libertarianism will soon be the dominant philosophy of the American right wing. Were they right? Was their prediction true? You tell me. So he kind of explains the philosophy of the character, which is there's right and there's wrong and that's it. So whether that resonates with you or not, it's up to you. Another, right, it hasn't even started. We just got 2 essays and the comic starts and we got another essay. This one is in even smaller print, which does not make you interested in reading this, but you can see how a demographic who feels politically alienated would be interested in reading a comic book that feels more politically aware of the issues that they care about, right? So now we get into the interesting stuff that I think this is where we see Ditko, why Ditko was respected. So here's the layout. Now he wants to deliver a message and he does a good job doing that. So again, as we saw as earlier, this symmetrical cut across the face, 2 sides. He has the same effect here, but even more intense, whereas one side is a man, the other side is dead. So it means life, death. So, and he has the gun shooting a bullet here with some lettering on it. Down the center is the line separating good and evil. Life is right. Death, kill is the bullet. This is composition. This is design. Steve Ditko really thought through how he's going to do this. Now the highlight, which I thought was interesting, the bullets here, it's a metallic thing. We got the light coming in from here. There is a highlight, which is actually an exclamation mark. This is an artist who's on the ball, right? He's in the zone. And here we got a reflection of the same composition with the right side, the light side, the life is on the left and cut across. So you've got a cut like this, right? Zoom, zoom. That's your composition with Mr. A on the right side on the attack against the wrong side. He being the border, right, that protects evil from coming into good. And we've got Mr. Ditko who signed his name right next to it. I think we see a lot of the writer's self-perception here. I think Mr. Ditko believes he is upstanding and righteous. Wow. Right? You see this, right? Let me adjust the camera a little bit. This, I mean, you look at this, it's the same thing as this, like dense, small, opaque, difficult to penetrate. It's not initially attractive, but in art form. But this has motion to it. What I see here is movement, and it's busy. It wants to do a lot at the same time. This comic book is actually kind of difficult to read because there's no single place that your eye comes. You could argue here, right? Because there's some repetition here, and this is the only like centered like panel with like a clear center. But yeah, so the story goes that this little girl is going on a walk. She gets jumped by kidnappers, and these kidnappers call the parents to ask for a ransom. The expressions here are very intense. Here's Steve Ditko's competence as a draftsman on full display. This is wild stuff. And the lettering is equally impressive. A lot of regular and bold font work. I'll scan something and put some close-ups on the screen. So obviously the parents are distraught, are very scared about their little daughter being missing, and the Lily, the innocent young victim, we get her thoughts. She's very, very, why would somebody do this to me? There's a lot of anxiety about why would this happen, and why isn't nobody helping me? So I think there's to me it reveals, I think, Ditko, like a hurt that he's carrying around about victims, about people who have been hurt. Possibly himself, he might have been victim to some wrongdoing or some crime or some abuse, and it's very effective to put a young girl in the victim character spot, because it's very easy to empathize with somebody doing something terrible like kidnapping a young girl. You empathize with the victim there, right? And so there's a big fight. The crooks together are fighting, like having an argument. They're pretty excited about the ransom being on its way. And the thing is, they're debating, they're getting nervous about, now there's a witness to the crime. So they say they're going to kill the girl. So the stakes keep getting higher, right? But we see in a flashback, and the flashback is expressed with this different type of panel border. So comics creators, take note, when you want to do a flashback, find a way to communicate that clearly, right? One way is using squiggly panel borders. There's other ways. Use your imagination, but it's good to make it clear that it's a flashback. Without this, it it would be a little bit more difficult to put together, and it might, kind of be distracting otherwise. So here we see the black and white motif come up again, right? We see this card with the evil on one side and the light on one side. It shows up here too. What they're saying, this gang of crooks are convincing this doubting young man that it's worth it to do this one evil deed, the kidnapping of Lily, to get $25,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, split 4 ways. But I guess in 1973, let's look at the inflation calculator actually. So inflation calculator, find US dollar value, 1913 2024. So let's go 1973 and now, and let's put 25K. Okay, so it ends up being $178,000 roughly. Wow. 50 years, 600% inflation. That's wild. So let's imagine it's $178,000 that they're asking for ransom. It's still split 4 ways and doesn't seem like a lot. But regardless, the story works nonetheless. So they want to ask for 25 grand, tax-free. And they convince this guy to do this one evil deed and be set, right? And the guy justifies it in his mind. No one will get hurt. The guy's loaded. And you don't think he got so rich by being honest. So he keeps kind of creating a narrative in his mind to justify doing the evil deed of kidnapping a girl. But now it's a lot worse than he thought, because these people are pressuring him to kill the girl so that there's no witness, right? So he's really quite torn about it. So finally, someone knocks on the door. Knock, knock. Guess who it is? They open the door. Nobody there. Just a card. The black and white card. Like we saw here. Like we see on the cover. This is the Mr. A's calling card. For fans of the question, you'll remember that he has a calling card as well. And this character is the question, basically. Just a more unyielding version of the question. So Mr. A comes in. Chaos ensues. The little girl's like, what's going on? Why does nobody care about me? And Mr. A does apprehend the woman. And the woman gets the idea that she's going to take as a hostage the little girl. While there's a scramble, she does manage to kick Mr. A in the face. This really kinetic panels. Like reading these, once you get used to the kind of claustrophobic feeling of how Steve Ditko draws, like he fits everything, he doesn't do a lot of close-ups, a lot of mid shots, but like he really fits every character all the time. Like every character that needs to be there, he fits them in. So it gets pretty busy, but once you get used to that rhythm, these panels look very kinetic. Like this is a line, a composition line here, like clearly defined, right? You can see, boom, and she jumps and grabs the girl and threatens to kill her. But Mr. A has an answer. Can't do that because I'd be surrendering both of our lives. If anyone's going to die, it is not going to be the innocent. Boom. Shoots the lady in the head. Now, the story is actually kind of cool and interesting up till then. The parents, we see the parents again, and they're like kind of freaking out, but they're trying to calm down because it's she's being looked for and all that. Now, in the back here, a cop and a doctor, or a cop and a family member or something in the back are having a discussion, and this is a type of people that don't have casual conversations. This is the kind of conversations these people have, and this is how they talk. Cancer is a noble destroyer compared to any man who inflicts suffering on innocent lives. Nothing can justify inflicting an unchosen, undeserved pain. Yet many people think action against the guilty is inhumane. It's like, okay, these people are having like a debate, right? Or like they're just saying their opinion while dealing with parents of a kidnapping victim. It's a little bit of a strange situation. Justice to them is to treat those who initiate force and inflict pain better than those who must suffer the unchosen force and pain, and all in the name of concern for human life. What an obscenity. Mercy for the guilty, indifference to the suffering innocent victims, and justice for no one. So this is the writer lecturing us. And it's very, it really takes you out of the story. The people don't talk like that. It doesn't, it really rings quite strange. Anyway, Mr. A keeps pursuing these guys. They're freaking out. So they start fighting. They're getting very agitated. How are we going to get out of this? Well, how about if I kill you and grab the money? So that's what one guy does. And he's saying, no one's taking what's mine. He takes the money and he says, now I can finally start being honest and good. Right? So it is interesting to have the thought balloons of criminals. A lot of criminals in this genre of comics, like crime comics, they're criminals, and they're just criminals. That's who they are. But here, it's interesting that we get the inner thoughts of these criminals who justify their evil to themselves, which is actually probably quite realistic. This does ring true to me. That if you watch interviews of ex-mobsters, even the hitmen that went to jail, they have a strange way of justifying what they've done, right? It was for my family. I loved my family, and that's why I killed 300 men, right? So I like that. I like the idea of criminals that do terrible things, and you see their thought process justifying their evil to themselves. So he takes off and he's like, I did it. What's interesting here is that Mr. A walks in. He's got the gun. He points the gun at them. And then he lowers it when he sees I'm going to watch what happens here. I'm going to let these guys sort each other out. And if this guy's going to kill that guy, so be it. He's a bad guy. Let the bad guy kill the bad guy. Then I only have one bad guy left to deal with. And I really like this series of panels where Mr. A is just looming as a silhouette. And this is a callback to what? To the card. Black and white, right? Mr. A being the beacon of good in a frame of evil. So the guy on the ground wasn't quite dead yet. So he lifts his gun, shoots the guy. Nobody gets the money, right? Mr. A comes around, takes the gun and the money, and leaves the one guy to die. Goes to help the little girl, and here we see the little girl hugging Mr. A, and this is the most positive light we see Mr. A in. But again, light and dark, right? Plays a lot with that. So visually, super interesting. And totally works in a black and white comic. This has to be black and white. It wouldn't work otherwise, right? So the little girl the whole time was wondering, why would they do this to me? And then Mr. A delivers a lecture about good and evil again. And right, it's not a natural sounding thing. It sounds like a moralizing thing. So right or wrong, he comes across as like a know-it-all, self-righteous, superiority complex kind of guy to me. So he walks down the walkway, which is interesting, and he keeps walking, and it turns into like a metaphorical walk from good to evil, where he leaves the pleading criminals to their plight, and they crumble into nothingness or into hell, if probably. Like in a sense, this is like the libertarian hell, if you want to put it that way. So he's got all of the keywords that make good what it is: rationality, mutual consent, retaliatory force. So I mean, I can't say that I agree with all of these things. I agree with like maybe the spirit of it, that, you know, you got to do the right thing, even if it's difficult and even if it's in small things, which is the heroic story of somebody like Spider-Man. Maybe Ditko injected this, but a lot of this is quite brilliantly designed and put together, but the story is really quite obviously a vehicle for the message. And it's not a compelling story unless you think it's a compelling message. That's Mr. A in a nutshell. And there's like a few of these stories, and they're all equally well drafted, extremely well communicated, amazing draftsmanship. There's a lot to learn here by studying the work. I think I'll spend a few days, now that I have this out, just trying to mimic his work a little bit. To me, this looks a lot better than what we saw in Spider-Man even. And here's a spread. It's kind of like another propaganda poster. And again, Mr. A is correct in every way because he's only on the side of good. And here's the A is A, and it can't be anything else. And good is good and bad is bad. And I'm right and you're wrong. And the whole world is wrong and I'll be right. You know, there's definitely that vibe going on. But on the other hand, the other vibe is, even if the environment around you is corrupt and a lot of people are doing things that you believe are wrong, you should know that what your values are and stick to them. And I think that's fair message. So I'm mixed on this, but I really appreciate that I was able to find a copy of this. Mr. A, 1973, Steve Ditko. Yeah. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed that little review. And I hope that I was able to share with you a side of Ditko's corpus, one of the masters of comic storytelling that maybe not a lot of people are looking at. And I think there's a lot to learn from this master and how he told these stories. We don't need to agree with every piece of his message to admire the strength with which it is communicated. My copies, unfortunately, some of it is faded. I don't know what happened here, but anyway, that's it for the stream. I'm gonna see you in the next one. I don't know if I'll do this again. I did get some views. I don't know if it's something that, the behind the scenes of putting together a video, if that's something that people like. But anyway, best of luck. I'll talk to you next time.